Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me. So two questions. One is to how to mobilize the youth and unite the youth throughout Asia. And number two is pathway to politics for the younger generation. Two parts. I think the first part, before you mobilize the youth, you have to empathize with them first. You have to understand what they had to go through in the past 2 decades of their lives. I mean, looking at the graphs from VDM, you see that the youth will have to go through 2 coups in Thailand, 2 amendments in Thailand, a COVID crisis, the fear of not getting a job, the parents going through a job insecurity, housing crisis. So really, once you understand them, that these are the things that they worry about, it's different from what we worried about in the past. So once we do that, we have a way to engage them, we have a policy that's designed for them, and we make politics fun. We make politics sensational. We had to go through all that misinformation or information, deep fakes. People were saying, the military was saying I was born in Cambodia. A lot of these fake news came in, but the youth got so engaged because it was so much fun, and we speak for them, we represent them, we empathize them before we mobilize them. That's when they come out together and correct all those fake news and go to the polls and vote. However, I don't think that, the engagement in politics in the youth is always the case. If it was a student uprising in Korea or student uprising in Thailand or any part of the world, Berkeley in America, whatever, you see that because they have so much future ahead of them, they will think progressive. They will think equality. I want a chance in life. I want freedom, right? But U.S. presidential election in November was a wake-up call for me that you cannot take this new first-time voter for granted. You have to be engaged on the ground, the grassroots development that really cater to the younger generations. That's the answer to the first question. The second question is about pathway for politics. So our party, the average age, we have 151 out of 500 before. Average age is 42. The youngest is 25. We form a party that becomes a pathway for commoners and the younger generation to really get into politics without compromising their values and the bank account. So it's lean campaign management, is using data-driven, using social media as a platform, to avoid all those expensive campaign management. So they feel like, okay, now I can become a politician without big last names, without big bank account, and it's not going to jeopardize my future. So it becomes easier. But the secret sauce is about 2 or 3 things. And this is how I interview my candidates, my future candidates program. Why politics? You're 18 and 20 and 25, you're running soon. Why politics? Second question is, why my party and not other party? And third question is, why now and not before or not after? That way, you kind of tell whether the guy really cares about politics or just wants some big title and big names. And those are the pathway to politics for my party.
Thank you very much. I'd like to continue our discussions, and I'm sure you too. However, it's only already, I ran over 2 minutes. So I think it was a great discussion, and especially the eminent speakers when they deliver the keynote speech. So let's thank them by giving a big applause. Thank you very much.
It's the way that is happening all around the world. So, which brings us to 2025. I mean, it's not even a debate anymore that repression and renewal is possible in our region as a whole. The responsibility before us is to decide that renewal will prevail over repression. So what do we do next as a region? You know, not just as a one particular country or one particular segment of the society, whether it's academic, NGO, former politicians like myself. I have 3 calls to action for us to think upon. First, Asia must step up. Asia must step up. Asia in the world with no rules. When other parts of the world, the Western world, too divided and too distracted, and Asia must show the world that democracy is not a foreign import. Democracy is a lived experience. It's a way of life. It's not just institutions and checks and balance and having boxes to check, but it's embedded in our schools, in our workplace, in our parliaments. And we have to show that rule-based world order is still the way to go. And I mean, in Thailand, as we see the absence of the Americans and the Europeans as they are too divided and too distracted, we started to see Asian way of democratic and human rights, you know, from Japan, from South Korea, from Taiwan, and I think that's a good sign. But I think we really have to show that, you know, it's a way of life and it's part of Asian DNA, and that's my first call to action. Number 2, Democrats must deliver. If democracy is not effective, is not efficient, and cannot deliver results, people will look elsewhere. The autocrats will come up with a better excuse, try to find an enemy, and say that democracy doesn't work. So it's really about Democrats, about politicians to really think about the value chain of how they run their campaigns and how they exercise power and deliver results to the people. Using the technology, using a lot of volunteer management in order for us to deliver. And the last and the third call to action is that the youth must decide. In Asia, we're the largest bloc of democracies, the youngest out of all the continents. The youth must decide contribution over cynicism, because it's fatigue by design for them. Autocrats are trying to make politics as boring as possible. It's irrelevant to them. If they feel indifferent, it's not sensational enough for them to go out and vote. And that's how democracy dies. So I encourage and call for action to the youth of Asia to choose contribution over cynicism, choose passion over passive indifference, and that's how we are going to move democracy forward in Asia. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having me.